Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, we're going to talk about today being bid day, when the final bids, or second round of bids, I should say, are expected to come in for Manchester United from Ineos, Qatar, and potentially others, but we will see. Talk about that, talk about a couple of misconceptions that people have about these bids, and we'll also talk about some transfer news, targets, and things, especially in the midfield, where I put a bit of information in the Discord yesterday, and I want to discuss what it means and kind of go over it, because I don't know if I understand myself. So, getting first into it, today is bid day. This is the deadline at 9 p.m. this evening UK time for bids for Manchester United from the second round of bidding, wherein apparently there are, according to reports, 8 groups that have been in discussions, 4 for full takeover, 4 for partial. However, bids are right now only being expected from 2, which would be Ineos and Qatar. If there are others, we do not know. In terms of full takeover, we do not know who they are, if they are going to come in. The rest would be offers for financing and things like that from Elliott Group and such. So as of today, they're supposed to place those bids in, and the next steps we'll discuss in a minute. But overall, even though I know that there have been other groups around, there's been some American groups who've looked at things. I know specifically of some of the names now. I'm not sure that they will bid today. I would only say I'd bet on Ineos and Qatar being the bidders for full takeover today. I'm not really worried about the partial takeover aspect of it. I've never really been much worried about that. There was a tweet about them partially, if they don't get their price, they'll take investment and pay off the debt. And I don't believe that, not for a moment. I mean, sure, it'd be good for the club, but I don't believe it for a moment. If they wanted to pay off the debts, they could do so now. They don't. And they haven't. They never have. It's not like they don't have any money. They could pay things off. So anyway, they have never invested any money, and I don't know why they would start now and give up, billions of dollars. So it's very doubtful that they suddenly turn into that type of people overnight with regards to Manchester United. Instead, it'll likely be sold. Now, I just want to discuss something specifically on this Ineos versus Qatar thing, because there's, especially the way the journalists write things, there's a lot of misconceptions about certain aspects of the bids. I don't get information about Qatar. So if I'm sitting here talking about it, and someone says, oh, you're just favoring Ineos, all of that, and talking about it and defending them, it's just because that's the info that I get. It's, again, from there. That was one of the first things I got all the way back in August last year, way before all this, was that Sir Jim Ratcliffe wanted United. He was the first party to express interest, the first one that I heard about, and I happen to have a connection that goes in that line, and so that's where that information comes from. But one of the things that the media are very poor at reporting, probably because they don't understand the finances of it, and that people are misunderstanding. And the reason why it's important to clear it up is this. It's more likely that Qatar end up with the club. They're probably the favorites right now. They have more money, all of that. That is totally true. However, if Ineos did end up somehow winning this bid, the way people are taking a lot of the reporting at the moment, and the way it's being done at the moment, is a lot of people would be worried. They'd be thinking, oh, there's debts, oh, there's expenses, oh, it's going to be, there's no money for the club because of these loans and things like that. That's not how it works. That's not the reason why Ineos are taking loans out as a part of the bid. I'll try to do an analogy here, but let's say you have yourself $1 million, and it's for retirement, and it's invested in the stock market, and it's earning 12% per year. And let's say you want to buy something for $50,000, $100,000 for fun, a car, something like that. You're not going to take your $100,000 out of the stock market and buy that car, because you're earning 10 to 12% on that $100,000. If you remove it, you're not earning that 10 to 12%. You're buying an asset that may or may not appreciate. If you take a loan on it, you're paying some interest, maybe 3 or 4% for someone who's qualified, maybe lower, which is fine. Over time, it's better to pay it that way than to take money out that's earning you more money. A business like Ineos has investments around the world, factories, things like that you can see. They invest billions of dollars in different assets that make them money. Selling any of these assets would lose them more money than taking out a loan for some of the money if they don't have all of the cash. If they don't have all the cash in hand, it's better financially for them to take a loan than it is to sell off an asset, because those assets are profit-churning assets, whereas a bank, like the assets of Qatar, where they have a lot of liquidity, they don't need to do something like that. It makes no difference. It does not mean that if Ineos end up taking over, and they're not the favorites right now, I do believe it is Qatar, but if it were to happen, I don't want people sitting there going panic like, oh my God, we're Glazers 2.0 like I've seen. It's a ridiculous notion. It's poorly communicated by the media that makes it seem a lot worse than it is. Whatever your preference, it's fine. That is not a reason to prefer one or the other. Ineos are also looking at the stadium. They're also looking at all of the things that the same thing Qatar are doing. Really, it's a matter of your preference and what you think and what's going to happen. That's all. Whatever you think there, fine. But I wanted to clear that up because if it were to end up being Ineos, it will drive me nuts to see people making those kind of assumptions if that's what it happens, or if they're still in the race, or they make it to the next round and people are thinking they have a real chance at it, and they're thinking, oh, this is Glazers 2.0. They're going to have loans. They're going to have debts. They're going to have... It's not like that. That's not how it works in a business of that volume that brings in over $60 billion a year in revenues. It's just not like that. It's cheaper for them to get a loan than it is to sell an asset. It's better for the business for them to get a loan than to sell an asset. And that's just the way that it is. So I wanted to just explain that. Now, in terms of who's going to win, I don't know. Like I said, all that I said last week and mentioned on Twitter and things like that, Ineos have not given up, but they also believe that Qatar are in the lead for the purchase of Manchester United. But they're trying, and the only thing that could potentially change this a little bit is if one of these groups, like Pagliuca, for instance, who did this with Chelsea, were willing to group up, which I know Ineos is willing to. I know that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was open to other investors because that gives them a lot more money, a lot more manpower, and a lot more expertise in these areas if they were to group up. And it may be that he has to form a consortium there, which is all of the groups that were involved in the final running for Chelsea, I believe, were consortiums. It may be that he has to or wants to in order to compete with the financial offer of Qatar. So that's just one thing to keep an eye on potentially happening that could keep Ineos in the race as well. They haven't given up, but Qatar are at the moment in the lead. It's fairly straightforward with them, what they're doing, what they're looking for. There's not much else to discuss until we see what the actual bids come in at. Now, in terms of the next steps, however, it's not totally clear. They could just say, bids are in, we picked this one, exclusivity, let's get down to business, finish this up by Easter, and bam, the club's sold by the end of April. That would be nice. That could happen. It would be nice. My suspicion is that if both Ineos and Qatar and anybody else come in above £5 billion, they're going to play a third round and say, look, these are the bids that were made. I want to see if you can compete with it. Or they might talk to one. If one was a little higher, the other talk to the other one and say, can you match it? If you can match it, then we're going to go into a third round where you have to place at least one more bid and up the price and drag it out another 2 weeks. I feel like they're going to do that. It's the Glazers. I think they want the most out of the club, and I think they feel like that's the way that they could get the most out of it, especially if there ends up being any other bidders involved. That could happen, and if that happens, it will take a few more weeks. But either way, we should start to hear about who's made it into the next round. If it's one party, two, or three. If it's one, it'll obviously go faster. And the whole thing will be done a lot sooner. And that's what we really, I mean, that's all I want at this point in time, too. I would rather it gets wrapped up because moving on to the next point about transfers, before I get into the midfield targets, one of the things I've heard is that Erik ten Hag and John Murtaugh are quite frustrated. And one of the reasons they're frustrated is they're not being given a real timeline for when this is going to be over. There's a budget, even if the Glazers stay. However, the money cannot be spent at the moment until this process is completed. They don't know when it's going to be completed. They don't know how to know when it's going to be completed. They're not being kept in the loop on all of the specifics of those things most of the time. So what's happening is they're in contact with agents, they're in contact with targets, and they're being told, you got to make a move. See, transfers don't happen overnight. These deals are lined up months in advance. Talks occur months in advance. Talks are supposed to occur during this international break, is often a time when they really start lining up the first targets they're going to be bidding for. Talking to agents, talking about personal terms, lining up what bids and offers they can make that they think are going to be accepted by the selling clubs, working through those intermediaries and agents and doing all of that. That's all what's supposed to happen now. Agents are asking them, what's the deal? When can you actually start moving forward on this? You want these deals done early. Their job, the agents, they spend all year doing it, is to work out where the client is going to move. They can't do that. Or they're starting to move on to other clubs if United cannot press ahead. And it is a disadvantage with competitive players where there might be a price that other clubs are willing to pay and other clubs interested. It's a big disadvantage at the moment. But, Erik ten Hag, John Murtaugh really want to plan. They want to get things done. They want to have things ready in preseason. They've done a lot of the groundwork to get deals ready, but they need some finality on this now. Moving on then to midfield targets. I put this in the Discord, but it was something I wanted to discuss. And a real interesting thing I've noticed and I've been told in terms of targets that United are looking at is the profile. Specifically the profile of more of an attacking midfielder is a big profile for that. We know that there's a striker and a goalkeeper, which I'll talk about in a minute. Right back seems to be somewhat put on hold, but a center back could be brought in that could cover right back, like Timber, who is a target. Let me just touch on that really quick. Center back, Timber, Kim Min-jae, and then are both targets for center back, okay? They're both targets for center back. I would keep an eye on both of them if Maguire departs. And then there's the rumors of that Axel Disasi name. I would keep an eye on those three names right now. That's what I would keep an eye on. But with regards to the midfield, you have the names like De Jong and such, but you're not getting a lot out of that, right? Like you're not getting, it seems like Declan Rice is being let go to Chelsea or Arsenal, who would be a perfect fit for a deep role. Frankie de Jong keeps talking and he's saying he's staying at Barcelona, and we kind of know that. You're not getting a lot about that deep midfielder. And it makes me wonder about potentially a switch in the way that United want to play, because I've been hearing about multiple targets, but the last few weeks have been somewhat interesting. You had, in the last game, not that it worked that well, but McTominay, Sabitzer, and Bruno playing much higher at more of an equal 8 role. Sabitzer was not deep, not at all. In the prior game, again, I actually think it was working until the red card. You had Bruno playing in the 8 and Sancho further up, and again, it was sort of more of City's 6 and 2/8 role. Ten Hag has played a couple of systems. He's played a system where a fullback drops into the deeper midfielder, and you do play with 1 6 and 2/8. And he's played with more of the double pivot, or the kind of one slightly deeper 8 with the 6 and the 10. He's played both ways, and this season he's played both ways a bit. I could strongly see a scenario where next season, if he cannot get Frankie de Jong, the perfect player for that deep position, he pivots to this setup of having 3 of the back 4 drop into the back 3, one of the fullbacks, probably Luke Shaw, or if by someone like Timber, coming in as the second midfielder next to Casemiro and having 2 attacking 8s. The reason I think that is, in terms of midfield targets, I've been told about I was told about Gabri Vega, that is a very true rumor, that they are in contact, they are scouting him, they are looking at him, they are interested, and that the Mason Mount rumors are true too, but there's been no talks with Chelsea. Demands are very high, and at that point it's kind of unlikely. But Mason Mount is trying to get a move to United, and they are interested in the profile of this sort of attacking 8. So when you look at the team and you look at Fred, Eriksen, Bruno, you're thinking, yeah, if you wanted to play with attacking 8s, Van de Beek goes, you get another one in there, you have your 4 attacking 8s, where you could maybe do like, I'm not saying this, but Mason Mount and Fred, Bruno and Eriksen as the rotation, as attacking 8s. And it kind of feels like there might be a shift towards that. Probably they want both a deep midfielder and an attacking midfielder, but I don't think both are going to get done this summer, depending on who's available. It's hard to tell. I don't know why we'd be looking at attacking 8s if we're also getting a deep one, because then you've got Fred, Eriksen, Bruno, who are all kind of attacking 8s for one position when you need that deep midfielder. So it's a little confusing to me. I can't say I understand it, but I know for certain they like Jude but can't get him, and he's viewed as that attacking 8. They like Gabri Vega, who would cost about $40 million, and they could get him. Might be a good one to keep an eye on. And they like Mason Mount, but costs are prohibitive. But again, those are all kind of attacking 8s. They're definitely not deep midfielders. So maybe a little bit of a switch in the system that we've seen from Ten Hag to score more goals. Because frankly, I think that's where we're struggling more than anything else, is in creativity, scoring more goals. But you're seeing growth, and part of it might be this last couple of months with Fred playing. I've always said my preference would be a better Fred, which is having a deep 6, Fred, someone who's pressing high, winning the ball high, getting higher. He's been playing way higher, way more of an attacking 8 than Eriksen. He makes runs in the box, and Sabitzer did the same against Fulham. That's how he scored. Making those attacking 8 runs into the box, etc., and having a more like 2 creators from the midfield. It seems like that might be the route that Ten Hag wants to go. And in that route, you might see an attacking 8 brought in, someone like Timber brought in, who can play center back, right back, or midfield, or like in that role, and then the goalkeeper and striker. So just something to keep in mind, because the talk about those kind of attacking 8 players is a little more common at the moment, and I know United are looking at them and in contact with representatives about it. So it's just, maybe they want all of them. I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating based on how we've been playing, plus that these names are real targets, and logically I can't see otherwise. It would also be where someone like Hannibal Magebry would fit, who I've been told they want to bring back next season. And there was some quotes from him today about how he talks to Ten Hag after every game, about what he can do better, what he can do different, and that tells me maybe Ten Hag sees a talent there. And he would be a good one to bring in if you're playing 2 attacking 8s, to be like, start getting some development minutes in there. So interesting idea, just something to think with in terms of the midfield as we move forward, that perhaps there's a change there. In terms of goalkeeper and striker, the striker stuff, you've seen the news come out about Harry Kane, Osimhen, etc. Osimhen being $150 million in price. I hope we can get him. I still think it would be the best target. But you're seeing stuff about maybe Harry Kane forcing his way out and Conte getting sacked and the whole difficulty with Tottenham. We cannot rule out Harry Kane at the moment, but I still believe it'll prove too challenging for United, and the cost that will be placed for United, the price tag for United versus anyone else, would be so much given his age that they may continue to look elsewhere. But at $150 million for Osimhen, it's hard anyway, because it's going to be so expensive, and that might lead them to Gonzalo Ramos. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I think there's a lot still at play, and obviously the takeover needs to get done for those big deals. In terms of goalkeeper, we've seen a lot of people talking about Laurie Whitwell, that it's likely David De Gea is going to stay. That's true. I've been saying that since August. He is likely to stay. They want to offer him reduced term contracts to stay as a goalkeeper and bring one in. Him staying on a reduced contract does not mean they will not bring a goalkeeper in. They need to resolve the situation with Dean Henderson. Tom Heaton is departing. Butland is alone and is not going to play a minute. They need to get another goalkeeper, and it's expected to get someone that can become the number 1 in that case. And whether that's immediate and be competing, hopefully, But they've been scouting Diogo Costa, and they've had talks with his representatives. And then there's David Rea. There's probably more. But I know that they're still looking at this area. It's just going to be a matter of what can they reduce David De Gea's terms to, resolving Henderson, and where is the money and the budget in terms of sales and FFP and all the other targets. But it is something they're looking at. Okay, so that's what I've got for now. Let's see what comes out in the news tonight with regards to the bids, if anything is briefed or comes out about who bid what. I don't think we'll hear for, it says maybe up to a week, about who is accepted into the next round, but there's often leaks and things like that, and they'll probably get feedback sooner than it comes out. So hopefully I can provide some insight there. Let me know your thoughts about all of this, including the midfield, the setup, all of that, moving forward with summer. Yeah, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on, and I'll see you in the next video.